It is Sunday, April 2nd, 2023. Welcome to Veda. I'd actually planned to tackle this subject yesterday, the first day of Veda, but my plans were changed a bit. My parents, who, as I've already said multiple times, but in case you're new, live either conveniently or uncomfortably close depending on the situation. In this case, it was a little bit of conveniently for them and uncomfortably for me because they told me they were going to be gone for several hours and asked if I would watch the dog. And of course I'm going to watch the dog. So I took her to Rural King, which allows dogs. And I took her to Coldstream, which is either basically or definitely a small national park. And I probably would have taken her to Arby's if I hadn't already taken her to Sheets. I got curbside and shared my breakfast sandwiches with her. So by the time they got home, my initial plans of going out and shooting some intros and connecting pieces, which I might do later in this month, not to mention taking some notes, which will result in this topic, were kind of shot. I was somewhat physically and also somewhat emotionally exhausted. First off, when they called, I had just woken up because I'd been up most of the night fixing my 5.1 surround system. That will probably be another video this month, or maybe 2, 3. And I discovered that they'd actually called earlier and I was too sound asleep. I usually keep my phone on vibrate, and generally the vibration is loud enough to wake me unless I'm in a deep sleep, which I was, and I felt a little guilty that I hadn't answered the first time. Also, the dog's legs and feet were muddy. Yeah, see, that's from her. So I took her to my cellar and rinsed her off. I didn't drench her, just a little misting, but first of all, she is a dog, and like most dogs, she doesn't exactly like being washed, and second, this is cold. And it wasn't until later that it occurred to me I could have used warm water from the shower. So she essentially suffered unnecessarily because of me. Also, as soon as I brought her into my parents' house, she went straight to her water dish and started lapping like crazy. Yeah, I'd forgotten to bring water for her. Anyhow, the topic is, since I'm going to be whining about my parents quite a bit for the rest of this month, for the simple reason that I was diagnosed not quite 10 years ago at the age of 42. They actually used a term which I believe has since been deprecated. So most of my life I have been undiagnosed. I may actually have once been diagnosed with oppositional defiant disorder. And my mother either misinterpreted it as hating her, or it was explained to her poorly by a child psychologist who, well, it was a long time ago, but I don't have a good opinion of her in my memories, and I know that I didn't have a good opinion of her then, and it wasn't just because I was missing Batman. So I feel that I should say some nice things about them. They have been very helpful. I'd like to say more than I deserve as a joke, or maybe is it a joke? I don't know. There is a thin line between self-deprecating and self-loathing, and even I'm often not sure where it is. But they have helped me out financially. I mean, I sometimes have had difficulty paying bills, and they've helped me. They co-signed the mortgage for my house. They've helped me get various cars. They've even helped me invest so I have somewhat of a cushion. Well, that's more my mom. She understands that. My dad, I do not. That's one thing that we have in common, I think. Both of us, I think, if left to our own devices, could spend a lot of money very quickly on our hobbies. Also, I'm a decent cook, even if I'm not particularly good at cleaning up after myself. And that's largely because I helped and watched my mother. And I'm also a decent builder and repairer, even if my building is more along the lines of modding. And again, that's largely because of helping and watching my dad. Also, since my diagnosis, I think my mom has tried to compensate a little better. For example, we were in Germany recently, showing my privilege again. At least I'm realizing it. We were visiting relatives, and I was participating in the conversation somewhat, and I wasn't really that much part of it. They're more conversation people. And I was also playing Pokemon Go, nothing too intense, just catching Pokemon and spinning Pokestops, just enough to siphon off a little of my concentration so that I could pay attention to the conversation. I think that's a form of stimming. And nobody said anything, and my mom says that's because she explained to them that I had autism and they should make some exceptions. So, thanks, Mom. As I've said quite frequently in last time, and I think the time before, they are in their 80s. They are getting forgetful. I need to be patient with them, and it's not easy. I think even without the autism, right? Also, they've helped me with medical stuff. I think they've probably paid for some stuff that my insurance didn't cover, and I've never had to worry about being taken somewhere if I couldn't drive myself. I'm starting to realize just how much of a privilege that is, as I have a friend who doesn't have that advantage. I've tried to help him out when I could, but, yeah. But at least now I have said some nice and positive things about my parents, so I won't feel quite as bad when I start ragging on them and whining about them, and other words that basically mean the same thing, which I guess is saying bad things about them. I mean, these are the people with whom I have had the most interaction over the course of my entire life. So just going by the law of averages, I'm going to complain about them the most. Gee, it got dark all of a sudden. Fortunately, they're not going to watch these videos, so that helps. And yeah, the whole reason I'm standing here is because of that. Yeah. Mm-hmm.